When we're talking about 4X games, we're not talking about trading currencies. This is the initiative, where we analyze how new games will do in the market. Here we have the reboot of Master of Orion, a 4X strategy game by NGD Studios. Wargaming is the publisher, who obtained the rights to the IP when Atari went bankrupt. There were many attempts in the past at replicating the depth and gameplay of older games like Master of Orion 2, but many of them fell short or ended up having different goals altogether. But this game went through early access and now has been officially released. Let's see how this reboot will turn out. 4X stands for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate. All of that is here and in good working order. Explore the galaxy, colonize planets, and build your empire. Managing the colonies and the logistics are fairly straightforward. You set the food, production, and research, you have a build queue, and you have automation features which become necessary later in the game. The UI is simple and it works well, but some things irritate me, like assigning colonists to do their job. I can only move one at a time. The tech tree is very simple, but you're researching categories, not just individual technologies. Most of the time, you're given 2 or 3 things, but in some cases, you have to choose between them in a given category. That forces you to research the superior versions of it later, or you can trade with other civilizations, but in most cases, it's a no-brainer. I'll take a universal 15% increase in population growth than a structure that increases it by 25% in a single colony. I don't like the spying in the game for the same reason I didn't like it in Master of Orion 3. You assign them to individual colonies and give them missions there, but it takes a few turns before you know if the mission succeeded or failed. I would have preferred Master of Orion 2's style of using production to train spies. The assigning to a colony is the part I did like, but I would have liked the ability to send multiple spies to a single colony and have the spy calculations done every turn instead of waiting X amount of turns for the result. As it stands, I don't get anything meaningful from spying, but almost all of these missions result in failure, even on undefended planets. It's much easier to do counterintelligence at home instead of wasting your time dealing with that. Designing ships is simple as well. You can customize everything, even the model and skin it uses. When it comes to its capabilities, you just pick and choose what goes on it. It's just the weapon, the quantity, and any modifiers for it, just like it was in the previous games. It doesn't have the simpler attack and defense of beams, cannons, and missiles you've seen in other 4X games. It's the usual beam weapons, the cannons that ignore shields, the missiles which can be shot down, the torpedoes which cannot, and several utility options for those weapons that you have to research. They messed with the weapons to the point where I don't see a reason to use anything other than missiles. They were originally intended to deal high amounts of damage for its size, but they had limited ammo and could be shot down with point defense weapons. In this game, they have infinite ammo. You could pulverize fleets stronger than yours with this even if those ships had many of the defenses that would counter it, as long as you don't auto-resolve and you micromanage your ships, but I really like those epic space battles, so I don't auto-resolve anyway. Fighters are completely useless since they effectively act like weaker missiles. They don't stay long enough at an enemy ship to have a meaningful impact. It's probably one of the only things I liked about Master of Orion 3. The fighters could be used to distract the point defense weapons so the limited volleys you had could connect. In this game, carriers are completely useless. The beams and cannons are really good later in the game when you research a good computer to increase the accuracy enough to consistently have those shots connect. But when missiles have infinite ammo, I just stick with them. I had to see how well the beams and cannons did when you stick a bunch of them on Titan-class ships. It does work well, but missiles are working better, and I think that's one of the biggest problems with the balance. Combat looks awesome, but the balance is more important. The AI only builds the default ships. They don't optimize them for specific roles or counter the types of ships you're building. They also cheat, which is standard fare for 4X games. I would like to have an AI that can outplay me, not just be given a handicap based on the difficulty I set. It looks like the different races prioritize things differently, like population growth or research, but it seems like that's just their racial bonuses taking effect. The end result makes the AI look like it has a one-size-fits-all mindset, and doesn't necessarily take advantage of the traits or the attitudes that each race offers. Multiplayer is good, but the player population is already low, so you'll have a hard time getting a game going. I've only played a couple of games, but I noticed that I can't get a full house, and combat has to be auto-resolved. I get that you have to keep things moving in multiplayer, but without going into combat, you can't tell how the enemy ships are configured. You can with the AI, but that's only because they stick with the defaults. On the more technical side of things, I can confirm that the game is multi-threaded. I don't know the full details, but I can see in Task Manager that the game is using more than one core when doing the end-of-turn calculations. It's also a 64-bit game, so you can use more than 4 GB of memory for those really large galaxies. I love that. I think this is a good game overall, but it comes with some baggage. It has most of the good things of Master of Orion 2, some of the bad things of Master of Orion 3, some really nice modern features, and some bad decisions with the game design. I could keep going with the comparisons between the different games, but I think you get the idea. It's in this weird place where it's not necessarily better or worse than Master of Orion 2. I think this is a good game in and of itself, and I think it's a good game for many of the same reasons I liked about the Master of Orion series, and it has that same addictive quality that keeps you playing. It'll scratch that itch you have for 4X games, but the balance is way off, and that renders some of the interesting mechanics useless in the game. There's also a few bugs that should have been detected and fixed a long time ago. I do not have health bars in combat. It's definitely turned on in the options. I really don't understand why these things weren't addressed when it was in early access. But with that in mind, how will the game do in the video game market? For the first few weeks, the patches are going to be the big issue. The latest post-release patch deals with a lot of AI improvements. I don't know why they officially released it when they could have just left it in early access. It wasn't like you couldn't play it before. Removing the early access label means people who are holding off will now be playing the game, and they'll be playing it when the meat inside is undercooked and the review scores will reflect that. I also think very few Let's Plays will be coming out for this game. 4X games are not very popular to Let's Play, mainly because, let's be honest, a lot of the Empire management is very boring to watch. It's fun when you're playing it, not so much when you're spectating, so I wouldn't expect many of those. After a few months, I think the game's dead. If you want to play with other people, you have to get the game now. Otherwise, it's effectively a single-player game with a lot of fixes. It will be near impossible to find someone else to play with. I don't see the developer adding any more life to their product by this time. They have made no indication that they'll be adding more content to the game, other than them saying they will have the ability to add new races if they decide to do that. A complete non-answer. The Terrans are only available to those who bought the collector's edition, so I'm thinking any new races will have a fee attached if they decide to go that route, but I don't think it'll do much for the game. The few people who would be playing this will probably not buy it at all. There wouldn't be many people to buy it anyway. After the disaster that was Master of Orion 3, I figured that was the end of the franchise. But now that it's been taken from Atari and rebooted, I think there's hope for another game in the future. This is something you would play every now and then. The game itself looks really good. It has nice graphics and decent voice acting, in most cases, but the gameplay is what matters the most. Despite all of its problems, I am enjoying this game, and there's nothing here that outright turns me off. But I can see why a lot of other people don't enjoy this. At least the price is right, $30 for a replayable game? But considering the problems it has, I would only recommend this game on the condition that you check out other reviews as well. Everyone will have different experiences, and they might be playing differently than me. We'll follow up on the game in a few months to see what happens. Thanks for watching!